Welcome.
How about here?
CAL stands for Citizens for Affordable Living. We're residents working together to keep Morro Bay
That would be
affordable.
better.
We're registered with the
my
Fair
video.
Political
Thank
Practices
you.
Commission, and my eyes can't see all those numbers down there, so I'm not going to go there. We fully support the city's goals to build a new plant with a recycling component and develop a more diversified and secure water portfolio to better manage future droughts. We firmly believe that we can accomplish the city's goals with the 2015 rate structure. So our workshop format is, this is CAL's opportunity to present our point of view without a 3-minute time limit, and we promise not to bore you. We have 3 formal presentations as well as a number of CAL members who will be speaking. We plan to finish in 90 minutes or less. There'll be no formal Q&A session, but CAL members will remain afterwards to answer questions informally. And there are water pitchers and glasses on the back table with some kisses from CAL, and they're chocolate, dark chocolate. And now I'd like to introduce our first presenter. Our next presenter is the lucky person who tries to run CAL's raucous weekly meetings and get them over in an hour or less. Most of the time he's successful, sometimes not, but he keeps coming back for more, and believe me, we beat him up. He also brings over 30 years of experience successfully managing large publicly funded projects like our WRF. The most recent program he managed was $239 million design-build student housing project at Cal Poly, known as Poly Canyon Village. This 9-building, 2,676 bed project included ground floor, retail spaces, 2 multi-level parking structures, and all new underground utilities, which had to be run through campus to connect with the existing campus utilities. Once construction began, Cal Poly continued its normal operations for 4 years. The project was delivered ahead of time and under budget. He's a licensed general contractor, a LEED accredited professional, and holds a master's degree in business. He and his wife have lived in Morro Bay for the past 15 years. Please welcome Jeff Heller. Jeff. I know I'm short.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. I'd like to give a special thanks to Carol and Larry Truesdale. I called them about an hour ago because I couldn't find the right cable to connect the laptop to the projector. But they were very supportive and helpful for this entire presentation. Thank you all for coming, taking a Sunday afternoon to take some time to join us. I probably would block the screen more than Carol, so if you want to move, please do so. We're having this workshop because we think we've got a great opportunity here in Morro Bay. As you all know, we've had months and months and years of discussion about this project, multiple reports, meetings, workshops, memos, interventions, and all kinds of things like that to get to the point where we are now. The opportunity we have, that we're going to present today, is we have an opportunity to build a new sewer plant with a recycling water component, with the money that we approved in 2015, that will comply with all public agency requirements, including the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and their deadline to meet the required water quality by February 28, 2023. We have time to make a change. Now is the time. We're asking you to go to the ballots. When the ballots come to you, that you check the protest boxes and turn them in. Now, why should we do that? Why shouldn't we just let things go on the way they are? The main reason for us, Citizens for Affordable Living, is cost. We don't really take political views on things. This is all about money for us. By changing courses now, and primarily moving the plant so it's at or near the existing plant, we'll save this project at least $25 million. $25 million. I think it's worth giving it a try, don't you, for $25 million? We're not talking about $1 million or $2 million, which that's a significant amount of money. We're talking about, according to the rate study that just came out, $25 million can be saved in pipeline and piping costs, lift station and piping costs if we find a location at or near the existing plant. Our 2 presenters are very knowledgeable in more technical issues than I am. So that's my spiel to get started. But for those of you who don't know about the Prop 218 process, I still get questions. I got a question last week from somebody who has kept up with this quite a bit, and he didn't realize that he could vote no. So I think it's worth it taking time to go through the process one more time. We've got a great opportunity here in California. Can we choose our natural gas rates coming to our houses and businesses? No. Can't. We pay the bill. The gas company sends us the bill, we pay it, or else we put a propane tank in our backyard. How about electricity? Well, you can put solar panels on your roof, but if you don't have solar panels, the bill comes from PG&E and you pay it if you want electricity. But in California, there is a law passed in 1996 known as the right to protest paying taxes. And they isolated certain utilities. And 3 of them that apply to this community are water, sewer, and trash. Basically, anytime Morro Bay or any city in California wants to increase their rates for those 3 services, the people who live here in that city have the opportunity to vote no, say no, no more increases. This is a big increase we're talking about now. We're asking you to vote no. Now, the latest number is the city is projecting a 28% increase. 28% of utility increase is huge, and there's no guarantee that that's all it's going to be. So it's a great opportunity to have this law. Very quickly, and I know this may be redundant. A public hearing, notice a public hearing will be issued. That's in the mail to you right now if you haven't gotten it already. There's a voting period of 45 days. You have to take the vote in within that 45-day period. That 45-day period has started. The last day to get your protest votes in is August 28th at 6 o'clock at the public hearing meeting, which will be at Vets Hall, 6 o'clock. You can submit that late. In order to protest successfully and keep the rates where they are, or not going up more rather, we need 50% plus 1 of all parcel owners or utility customers to submit a protest vote. So we have about 5,500 parcels. So half of that is, that's not very good, 2,750 maybe. We're shooting for 3,000 no votes from the people who own the parcels. If you're a business owner and you rent a space and it's a triple net lease, which is very typical for businesses, and you pay a water and sewer bill to the city, you also have a protest vote, a no vote. Our biggest concern, most people don't know about this. What I don't want to hear 6 months from now is meet someone on the street and say, I didn't know anything about this. How come my water and sewer rates have gone up so high? So thank you for coming. Please tell your friends that this is going on right now. Anyone who owns property in Morro Bay, whether they live here or not, can vote. You don't have to be a registered voter. You can be here illegally in the country. We don't care. We just want your money. We want your no vote. And if that mark is not reached, then the rates automatically go into effect and you'll never hear another word about it until your bill comes. That's what we're concerned about. The ballot will actually probably come in a document that's 3 to 5 pages long. It'll have the city seal at the top, like this, which is like the seal that was sent out in 2015. And then there'll be 3 or 4 pages of rate study information and why they're increasing the rates and so forth. And then on the last page will be the ballot. Talked about that. So who cannot vote no? Renters and tenants. If you don't pay a water and sewer bill to the city, you cannot vote, I'm sorry to say. But you can contact your landlord, your property manager, the owner of the property, because they may live out of town and not know about this. And that's our biggest concern. We have 20-25% rentals in Morro Bay. A lot of people live out of town, don't know about this. They'll be surprised when the rates go up. It'll be too late. There's no action you can take after that. So just because you're a renter, you don't pay a bill, you still can have an impact, and we urge you to get a hold of the property management company, tell them what's going on, have them contact the owner on your behalf, because if your rent goes up, for some people, it'll mean having to move. So we want you to know that that's an option for you. This is the ballot, recently approved ballot, which you'll get in the mail. It's quite like the ballot that Cal has been sending out for several months. It's slightly different, but not much. I think the biggest concern we found in the ballots that we collected, that a lot of the names that were printed were not legible, or the address was just scribbled. So I urge you, if you're going to vote no, be very careful, be very legible, use big letters, make sure your address is easily readable, because if it's not legible, it'll get rejected by the city clerk, and rightfully so. So be very, very careful when you fill it out. You check the 2 boxes, assuming you want to oppose both of the rates, water and sewer. You sign it and date it, mail it to the city, or hand deliver it to the city. Again, you have 45 days to do this, with August 28th being the last day. Now let's say you don't have your ballot in the mail in a week from now, call the city, say, hey, I'm John Doe, I haven't received my ballot, what do I have to do to get one? Don't just wait for the mail. Be sure and check the mail, if it's got a city emblem on it, be sure and open it up and not throw it away in the trash, which is what I do when I have anything more than about 2 pages and don't even read it all. Talked about that. Yeah, so talk to people about it. We don't want people, if you're not opposed to, if you're okay with the rates going up, that's fine. But I don't want people to come to me later and say, I didn't know this was gonna happen, because it's absolutely too late then. So talk to your friends and neighbors about it. This is a great opportunity to keep Morro Bay affordable. We can make this work with increases passed. In 2015, we can meet the deadlines, no fines from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, we've met with them. We know what their mission is, we told them we agree with it. We agree with the goals of the city to develop a new water reclamation facility. We just think we can be done for $25 million less. This is what concerns us. And our following presenters are going to talk about this quite a bit, so I'm not going to steal their thunder. But if you look at that, where the new location for the sewer is versus where the sewer is now, 3 miles uphill and inland, curiously next to a lot of vacant land, we have a lot of questions. And we want to see $25 million. I know this next presenter. I thought I knew him until he gave me this introduction there. There's so much more to this guy than I realized. Our next presenter is a world-renowned scientist that has worked in pharmaceutical discovery and synthesis, whatever that means. He has worked with Nobel laureates, and his creativity has helped establish 3 new ventures. He has worked for Big Pharma and has run $100 million international collaborations and served on scientific advisory boards to help other companies traverse the perilous path to success. He is currently an assistant editor for a premier international chemistry journal, and in his spare time is a wood-turning artisan. He and his wife live in Morro Bay. Please welcome our next presenter, who has attended UCSD, UCLA, and MIT with a PhD in chemistry, Dr. Larry Truesdale.
Thanks for the welcome. Let's see.
You're in the wrong button, there we go.
Okay. So this is, I thought Jeff would present this, but if you still have questions, and if you can't hear me, wave your hands back. I'll probably eventually catch it. Go ahead. But this is the information. If you still have questions and they're not answered, there are sheets of this that they can pass out to you so you can take that specific information home. You don't have to memorize it. This is the current sewage treatment facility. A couple things that I think are really important. Okay, the desal plant is located here. The headworks is defended against tsunamis and will stay there on the coast. That's the lowest spot where everything has to go. The Hansen site is right here. That is the Hansen site, which is nearby. And I believe the maintenance building is over here. Very important components of the existing site that would cost money to replace. Now, except you cannot replace the headworks, for sure. So, site selection. It's too flight. Okay. SBB, South Bay Boulevard site. The location of this is a big problem. It is in the Morro Bay Estuary watershed. And I can't emphasize how bad that is. You never, if you want to, never put a sewage treatment plant in a watershed. This jeopardizes the entire Morro Bay. And I gotta tell you, I have firsthand experience of having stuff in my town put in a watershed. We had a person who'd like to develop, big properties in, raise taxes, and he put these gorgeous homes right along the rim of the town reservoir. This was back in Massachusetts, granite soil, septic tanks, boy, stuff went right into the town water. Came home one day and we were told you cannot drink the water anymore. We already have 25 citizens deathly ill, mostly infants and elderly. It's Giardia, backpacker's disease, and these people don't go backpacking. So they found out the whole water system for the town was contaminated, just so they get a few extra tax dollars. It was 2 years before we had water, and then they said, we don't know when the pipes will be clean because you can't just sort of empty it, put new stuff in. You have to sort of flush it out and keep diluting and diluting. Big problem. We have the same problem in the bay. We start putting sewage in the bay. This is a prime responsibility of the Coastal Commission. That's why they were created, to protect the coast against these sort of things. So far, they have not spoken up and saying, hey, guess what? You made a big mistake to start off with. We've been told by our council that this is Morro Bay's forever site. It will always be there forever. It really should be the forever site. You just don't want that there. The other issue is that affordability apparently didn't go into the criteria in the way it should have for picking the site. They say repeatedly, tested 17 different sites. Now, how do we know they didn't do that? Because the numbers now come in that it's about $50 million to go 3 miles out to South Bay Boulevard. That's $15 million a mile. You use cost, as they did to choose a contractor, 65, 75% of the decision, this would be the overriding factor. Doesn't mean the other factors shouldn't be included, but this would be the overriding factor. According to that sort of factor, just the cost of getting sewage up there and bringing water back, South Bay Boulevard is 16 on the list of 17, right at the very bottom. The savings of $50 million is actually enough to build a sewage treatment plant. Water reclamation might be a little more. That is enough all by itself to build a sewage treatment plant. If you don't put it there and you can find a place where you can save it, you can double what Jeff was talking about, 25 million. Two slides again. What is the most affordable site? It's likely to be the Hanson site, west of Route 1. And there are all sorts of negatives about that, but for $50 million, someone should stand up and argue. That's the immediate savings if you put it there. It's above the 100-year floodplain. They could easily raise it 2 more feet if need be. Fact is, this is above the Embarcadero. Embarcadero was underwater before this site would go underwater. Pretty serious issue for Morro Bay, and we're worried about putting it there. The reclaimed water wells sites are very close. Piping becomes really small cost. No lift station is needed there. That was designed in the 50s by forefathers who used gravity to its maximum effect, and we cannot undo that. You have to tear everything up, and you have to be pumping all sorts of stuff up from the low points. The current plan has a lift station right next to the high school. That's right across the street from where the current plant is. And that would have to be protected against potential feared tsunami. There's just lots of things that don't add up. After the Hanson site, well, there's probably the next best one is the Dynergy site. The Dynergy site is where they used to have the water tanks. It's actually very hard to see from almost anywhere in Morro Bay. And you could even imagine a hybrid of Hanson and Dynergy if you needed more area. That is at a higher elevation, and again, well above the Embarcadero. It's near the headworks, which is an important cost saver. And the lift station, well, we may have to raise it since a few more feet higher. We may have a very minor one. Nothing like going 4 or 5 atmospheres higher, 120 feet or more above sea level to get out to South Bay Boulevard. Trivial. The other one to consider is the Giannini site. It's the closest site east of Route 1. It's about a mile east. Again, piping is a small issue, but you would have to put a lift station in. Your savings probably would only be $30 million on that site. That's still real money in terms of affordability for the citizens. And you have all the positives: easy piping, lift station, the baby lift station compared to South Bay Boulevard. And it's relatively near the where you reclaim water needs to go. Probably. Switching topics, water independence. Purifying sewage by reverse osmosis is how you get there. That's the best technology available, and what we've been proposed by the city, and what we would use as well. To take all the raw sewage in a day and purify it, you lose 25% of the volume of the water. I mean, that's the cost of running that technology. You have to put that salt-enriched water back into the ocean. You also take state water, which is ½ cent a gallon, and will go down to 0.3 cents a gallon by 2022, 2024, somewhere around there. And you have produced water that's $1 a gallon, over 200-fold increase in cost. Doesn't seem like a lot, but we'll talk about the volume we're really talking about here. An aquifer is what's necessary to take that water and make it potable. So technically, I think that water is actually probably drinkable, but it's not legally drinkable. You have to go through an aquifer and put it through a sand bed, and they're going to eventually pull it back out. Generally 2 to 4 months. I always saw 4, but the city's saying only need 2. But there is another problem, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. There is no aquifer in Morro Bay, or Cayucas for that matter. Hydrogeology has this clay barrier, and everything goes down to it. You don't go down deep and have a nice sand bed to purify your water. To take it out of the riverbed they're talking about now, you would have to resort to reverse osmosis. That's another loss of 25% of the water that's there. Putting it in the ground and dealing with salt intrusion and a number of other things is another 10%. But as you go through this, the volumes go down. So at the end, 25 plus 10 plus 25 equals 50, legitimately. Real math doesn't. The cost, though, is now $2 a gallon. 200-fold, it's 400-fold more expensive. Compare water at this cost. If you have no water, you will pay that cost. That's why we support water reclamation. But you don't want to do a lot of it. Like I said, there is no aquifer in Morro Bay. Geology is the curse of the area. Same thing with Cayucas. You've got to go all the way to Los Osos to find a chance for that. Morro Valley riverbed is of an unknown capacity to hold water. Technically, that riverbed is regulated by the state as an underground river. It is not an aquifer. But down at the very end, when you get to the ocean, probably many years ago, there was a delta. And there's some sand, and rise of sea level, fall of land, whatever some combination thereof, there is a buried delta right at the ocean. And of course that ocean wants to get in there. That's what called saltwater intrusion. They want to claim that you can put your purified, expensive purified water in there, and after a while you can pull it back out. We will be putting in, if we take all our water and treat, about 500,000 gallons a day. I think I calculated exactly 490, but that number will vary. So that's a good number to be working with. 500,000 gallons a day is actually bigger than a swimming pool, or many swimming pools. We have contaminants that are in there, saltwater intrusion from the ocean. There's nitrates, there's pharmaceutical residues, there's a bunch of things. So if you can get it out, and you will do that second purification, so it's potable. You can actually drink the stuff. There's no way around it, except the state changing the law and allowing you to use it right away. So one of the things we think about is that the WRF that we would like to build will be less expensive if it's near the recharge wells. Now, there's reason to argue whether you'll be able to do that, but if you're going to do it, get it close to that. What can be done with the treated water if the riverbed cannot act as an aquifer? In other words, it won't purify it. Or maybe it only takes 100,000 gallons a day and you have 400,000 gallons of really pure water. You can pump it back into the ocean, and I hear a lot of engineers say that's what's really going to happen. That's their thinking. You can put it in the ground, in that riverbed, and just leave it there forever. You never pump it out because of all sorts of other issues. These are the two most common things when I talk to engineers about this. They say this is the likely occurrence of that. That's problematic. I'm not having an aquifer. My personal preference here, and it's Cal's preference as well, is that we put the water into Whale Rock Reservoir. We have a pipeline right here in Morro Bay. We don't have to build it. It goes right into San Luis Obispo. That water is purer than anything in Whale Rock Reservoir. If we put our purified water into Whale Rock Reservoir, we contaminate water that's even purer than they have. That water goes straight to San Luis Obispo, chlorinate it, and do things necessary to make it drinkable. We put it in there under a negotiated agreement, we can get credit for it. And at this point in the process, we're at only the $1 a gallon rate. And we have much more volume. Of course, they would take a share of that for the privilege of us doing that. But economics will work really well here. And I do have a minor in economics. So how much water does Morro Bay actually consume? So I went back and looked at the tables, and this is 2014 and 2017. And you see around 330 to 385,000 gallons. You can see the impact of conservation as you go across there. And the state water source, somewhere the word state disappeared, but state water accounts for 90 or 90% more routinely. Good economics, cheap water. There is a month where they shut down lines and clean it, and we have to have other source of water. And these numbers vary from 3.5 to high as 12%. That's 1 month. These numbers are even smaller because we have storage tanks in Morro Bay that will compensate for this. So the amount of purified water we need is actually relatively small. If you at the $1 a gallon range, you have 179 million gallons you'll produce in a year. What do we need? We need 10%, 33 million. That's a pretty big overshot. If we have to do double RO, we will have 90 million gallons in a year. $2 a gallon. Still, 90 is more than 10% of these numbers. So we have plenty if we put it in As a matter of fact, you could argue, how big do you want the reclamation? I argue as big as we can, because more water in the county is the Morro Bay's benefit. I really believe that. Yeah, that's the price I talked about. Okay. We're going to move on to the, I guess you might call it propaganda, the data we've been fed by the city. And Cal routinely puts out flyers saying, this is what the city told you when they have their workshops. Truth in advertising is Cal's purpose, and they go through it. They said this. This is what really should have said. They said this, so it really should have said. And a lot of you say, well, they're distorting facts. Politics? Don't politicians always distort facts? No, but that's not Cal's philosophy. But when I saw this slide at their last workshop, it really hit the limit. This statement here is just out and out wrong. Not a distortion, it's wrong. And I'm going to walk you through why. And at the last time they could actually talk about this until the election's over, this is the type of information they put out. Buyer beware. This is the flow over the year for the sewage treatment plant. This turns out to be 2017, relatively wet year. But you see this line here at 1 million gallons a day, that's the capacity of the plant. There's no way Cayucos has been taken out of that. Absolutely impossible. That's a false statement. And then they show some pretty interesting data. Let me show you what it really should look like. And this may be a little small, but you've seen the basic trend. And so this is 2016, there's 2017. And you can see the actual flows during the year, and you can see where the rainfalls occur, spikes. You can pick up summer tourism, more people in the area. Is it Morro Bay? Is it Cayucos? How do you split that? There is no known way, because there's no meters that actually measure exactly what was Cayucos versus what is Morro Bay. And even here, this is really blatant, a really wet year. You see the spikes, but the water flow stays up for a long time. The water is in the ground, the pipes are leaking, and they're leaking rainwater into the pipes. And it lasts all winter. You fix the pipes, guess what? These would be little spikes. You take Cayucos out, you can lose some of that. Cayucos has a lot of rentals where they only rent 3 months out of the year. It's so profitable. And the other 9, sometimes it's only 8, it stays empty. That counts for this. Now, we have a lot of vacation rentals here too. So you can't separate these things. There's no way they could put that line in. And particularly at the plant capacity of 1 million gallons a day and claim that's fact. Our best guess, and we know this is not totally accurate, you take Cayucos out of the actual flow, and this is where the red line would be. If you fixed all the pipes, it could be below that. It could be a little above. We don't know. But if we fix the leaks, it probably will go down from here. So the capacity of our current plant without Cayucos is going to be somewhere in this 600 million gallons a day range. It might be 550. Volume. Yeah, absolutely. The volume goes through there. So buyer beware on what you're told. It's worth checking the facts. And Cal has done a very rigorous job of doing this, and they pass out stuff all the time. It's worth reading. Now, does Cal want to keep and modernize the current facility? Absolutely no. No way. Quite the contrary, a new facility is Cal's goal. Perhaps with the city and regulatory agencies very well. The city argues that the current plant is archaic, dilapidated, and broken down. That's absolutely, totally incorrect. It does need to be modernized, but it's running really well, and it's one of the best plants on the California coast, and routinely gets cited as such. Without Cayuga's volume, Morro Bay can meet the regional water quality board requirements through 2023. The rush to do this immediately is not really there. But we should not dawdle. The city has a history of having done that too long. The conclusion that I reached is that we need to right-size the plant. If you only need 500 million gallons a day volume, or you need 500,000 gallons, or 600 or 700, you need to know that. Until the pipes are repaired, you can only speculate. And all the modeling in the world doesn't work. They model Los Osos, and the site, our plant is double the size they need, and it doesn't run well. So Cayucas will depart from our treatment facility in 2 years. We spend those 2 years really fixing the lines, and we'll have real numbers. Then an appropriately sized plant, probably less than the current one would cost by a noticeable amount, will be what we could contract for, build. There's money to be made here for the citizens. Right now, there's money to be made for the contractors, if you do what you're doing now. How do we pay for a new plant? When we build a new plant, including water recovery, repairs current water sewer lines, it will require a loan and the cash we have on hand from the 2015 vote to 18. If we were to build a $75 million plant, a 30-year loan, no WIFIA in there, at a 4.5% rate, that's $4.32 million a year payments have to be made. The current rate structure generates $6.5 million, and in 2019 it's going to generate more because the rates go up in 2019 regardless. Cost of running the plant is less than $1.5 million. That will inflate. That's a labor cost as well as materials. But you take that number, and it's noticeably less than $6.5 million. We have enough money. Bottom line, why do we need to raise another $100 million? So my view of this, my conclusions are pretty clear. The city proposed WRF plant is environmentally irresponsible. Should never be approved by the Coastal Commission. The city proposed WRF plant is economically irresponsible. There's no need to spend all that kind of money. You can do the same for a lot less. Because of the large negative impact on a significant segment of the citizenry of Morro Bay, because of the high cost, the city proposed our WRF plant is ethically irresponsible. Plain and simple. That's how I see it. And I think Cal sees it very similarly. Okay, I have to resort to my glasses at this point. You're going to get a new speaker. He was born in Washington State, grew up and educated in Oregon, graduated from Oregon State and obtained degrees in mechanical engineering, business administration, with an emphasis on economics. He moved to California after college, spent 10 years in the marketing department of 2 major oil companies as construction manager and completed over 50 new marketing facilities. Bought his first business at age 33 as a contractor's license with a hazardous specialty, which is expired recently. is an active real estate investor and manager, bought a ranch in San Luis Obispo County over 30 years ago, and he oversees cattle and vegetable farming. He lives in Morro Bay. Hobbies are flying and fishing. And he's been married 57 years to his wife, Vivian. They have 2 daughters, a granddaughter, Mary Brown.
Thank you for coming. I'm the guy that's going to talk about Plan B. So somebody's got to just the forward arrow. Is that going to do it? There you go. All right. This is a report. The city gets all kinds of reports. I think the stack would be this high. And they pretty well fill my computer up. But this is one that was given to the city, and it'll take you through how we got to where we are. This is December 2013. And so what they did in this report, and I'll show you the picture, these are the various sites that they thought were the best sites. And they went through and looked at each site. And let's see if I'll describe it quickly. The Chevron site, there's a picture. The Chevron site is basically up Toro Creek Road. That's where Cayugas is building there. The second is more than one site. It's Morro Valley, which is out Highway 41. That includes the Giannini site. It would include the Rancho Colina site or any other site. So these were just areas they were looking at. Site C is the Chorro Valley, which is South Bay Boulevard. Site E, these are just the way they did was the power plant site, which is talked about earlier. And then the Panorama site where the tanks are, they actually looked at that to see if they were going to put a wastewater treatment plant there. And then site G. So, and I'll have maps for you to show you later. This is the overall, I need Larry's pointer here. This is Morro Bay, obviously. That E site is the power plant site. This is Toro Creek. If you drive on Highway 1, you know where the surfers go on the dog beach. This is the Morro Valley, the whole valley up there. This little point is Giannini, and then C is the Morro Valley. So this is so you can see what. Okay, so this is their report, and they ranked them. They went through a very complicated way to rank them, but the way they came out is the Morro Valley was ranked at the best number. The power plant was the next best. The Chorro Valley, which is South Bay Boulevard, the Giannini site, the Chevron site, and the Panorama site. And then they were actually talking about going clear up to the men's colony and putting the plant up there. Now, some of this ranking had to do with other uses for the property. And I'm not just talking about a wastewater treatment plant, but the dream was we're going to get off the beach, we're going to move the city's yard, we're going to get everything out of the way, and so we're going to give a lot of ranking to have quite a bit of room. So this is how their rankings came about. Okay, this is the environmental issues. They had it ranked for various issues, and I won't go through them, but you can see they looked at all the possibilities. So here's the Morro Valley site, just what they talked about. And if you can see, this is hard, but this highway 41, this is the Giannini area right here is what they were talking about. And this is the Rancho Colina site. So these were two places they were talking about. Excuse me, I'm sorry. This is the Rigetti, this is the Rancho Colina, that's right. Rigetti, Rancho Colina. And they said this is the advantages, ranked best for environmental, relative low cost, close for reclamation, large properties, out of the flood zone, and the challenges were distance up Highway 41, prime ag soils in certain areas, and the visibility of 41. What they didn't talk about, and this is when somebody hit them alongside the head, is right here we have some nice houses. And they didn't include in their study the impact on the citizens. So as we all know, that changed later, but this was their ranking on Morro Valley, that's why it got where it was. This is the Chorro Valley, which is the South Bay Boulevard, and this is a Williamsonette. This is the area right here we're talking about, little circle. That's where the South Bay site they talk about, and they said the advantages because they could use reclamation. They thought they were going to put the water in the farms out here. It gets out of the coastal issues and out of the flood zone. And the challenge is the distance from the city increased the cost. It is in private ag soils, which is bad. They said it's going to be Highway 1 visibility because as you come into town, you're going to be able to see this. I don't know if you've ever been out there in the Los Osos Valley Road, if you drive the men's colony at night, I don't know if you ever do or not, just before you get to Cuesta Colony, you look over in the valley and you'll see a big glow down there. That big glow are the lights for the wastewater treatment plant for the men's colony. So if you were to put the plant right there, as you come into Morro Bay, you'll be guided by the nice bright lights from the wastewater treatment plant. So that's an issue that is not talked about. I'm going to go through this fast because here's another property that really hasn't been talked about. The Giannini property. I don't know, when you drive through town, you see the MB up on the hill, put up by the high school. Well, if you drive out Little Morro Creek Road, there's a piece of property back here that's inside the city that is less than a mile from the existing plant. I measured on the Google map, it's about 3/4 of a mile. So it's short piping distance, very little elevation change. And if you, it's out of the flood zone, no environmentally sensitive habitat area, low cost. You've got some traffic on Little Morro Creek Road, so possibly that road needs to be changed. And it's got a sloping site, but no more worse than the sloping site we have now. So this is Giannini property. When we talk about it, we'll get to it in a minute. This is the Chevron property. Now this is Toro Creek Road. There's a piece of property here. There's a piece of property here. And I think this is where Cayugas is going. So this is what they talked about. Now, this property it's so obvious, it's almost embarrassing, because if there's a pipe coming from Cayugas bringing waste to Morro Bay's plant, and all of a sudden they don't put anything in it anymore, and they're going to put the pipe up this road, we could pump ours the same way if you really want to pump it, which I don't like. But you could put a plant here in Toro Valley. The zoning is good, it's out of the flood zone, it's out of you don't have a coastal commission to deal with. Point is that this is a site that wasn't looked at well enough, and it's a plan B. So here's the costs that were in this report. And they said that they rated Hanson as the cheapest. 10% higher would be the power plant site. And they said, look at here, the Giannini site, not very expensive. And then the Chevron site, and then this is it. And they were going to pump it all to the Coastal Commission. So you can see in their economic ranking that the Giannini site really makes a lot of sense. So here's their numbers. These are hard to read, but if you go here all the way across, and these numbers, they're actually saying the total estimated cost to build at the Giannini site was $100 million. So if you do the calculations that Larry had, and you can see, and that was, believe me, there's a lot of fudge in that. So this is a plant would fit on the Giannini site, or it would fit on the Hanson site. It takes about 2 acres. There's been 10 of these built in California. It has treatment all the way through tertiary. So I actually drank the water that came out of a plant like that. This is Plan B. The city has enough information to choose any one of those better plants. You can go to Hanson, I understand. Nobody wants us to be west of the highway. And I do know that if we went through the effort to go west of the highway, we'd have to deal with the Coastal Commission. And the way it works is this: if the city gives itself a permit to build the Hanson site, which is what they did before, anyone this could say, I don't like that. I want to appeal to the Coastal Commission. So any person can appeal to the Coastal Commission a permit. Now, frankly, if someone appeals to the Coastal Commission, you automatically get 2 years in the penalty box. And you don't know 2 years from now what's going to happen. So that's not the best Plan B. It's most economic as an engineer, but I also realize we have, we're a family, our city's a family. There are people who feel very strongly we shouldn't be west of the highway. I was one of the original appellants. I was mostly appealed because the design was wrong. But I don't think that Hanson property is probably one that I would go for if somebody said, look, I want you to have an operating plant by 2023. I want you to build it for the money we've got, and I want to get everybody to buy into it. If I got done doing this, I would go take them out to Giannini site, and I would ask all the consultants, take what you've got, what you've studied, and can we do it? That question hasn't been asked. And so I'm quite sure that to me, this is Plan B.
Giannini site.
The Giannini site. Excuse me.
Not forgetting.
I said Rigetti, I'm sorry.
No.
No, the G&E site, this plant, by the way, this plant will fit at the South Bay site. Now, as a side note, I talked to the engineer that is the low, or the contractor, the lowest contractor we have right now for the South Bay site. His name is William, the sign at the council meeting. I said, tell me, are you really, what would it cost if you built that plant somewhere else? He says, it costs the same, we're gonna build a plant. So we've got a firm bid right now to build a plant. Not the one I would design, but we have a firm place that we could build on the G&E site as we are. It's about the same amount of grading, but what you're really saving, which the city doesn't have, is the cost to pump all that stuff. 2 pump lift stations, 3 miles of piping out, 3 miles of piping back. Clean water's got to come back. That's not included. So by taking the pipelines out, it makes the project work for the money we already have.
Any questions?
One more button. Carol?
Does anybody need to stand up and shake a little bit to kind of get their bottoms moving around or something like that? Feel free to do it now. Before I introduce you to Betty Winehouse, who is going to introduce our speakers. And these are CAL members like myself and like other individuals in the audience here that have a heart in this project, and the heart is to save us all money, because I want to retire here and die here and give my grandkids this home. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. So who you've heard from right now are really people who are involved in or have been involved in building, and they know, the intricacies of those things. There are members of us in Cal who are not experts, but who do research and know how to read and analyze and know what our pocketbooks look like. And so we want to just give you a feel of what regular citizens are thinking and saying about this project. And I'm going to ask Tom Roast, wherever he is, to come first. He has a plan B. I don't have a bio on him, but I know that he's an attorney and a builder, and he knows all kinds of stuff about sewers.
Well, thank you. I was a trial lawyer for 40 years. I was a silent partner in a civil engineering company that operated from Fairfield, California to Frankfort, Kentucky. It was a civil engineering company, and we built sewer plants. So that's my background, or part of my background. The one thing I want to point out to you is that we do know, factually, Cayucas is building the plant for $20 million. Now, we're not talking about additional costs, I'm just talking about the plant itself. We do know that PERC has made a bid to build a plant for Morro Bay for $50 million. So those figures we know are not speculative. Those are hard numbers. Now, we also know that the city is suggesting that they build a plant for $126 million. Let's talk about that a minute. One of my competitors, when I was owning the engineering company, was Black & Veatch. Black & Veatch's contract with its partner.
Can you hold the mic a little closer?
I'm sorry. We know that Black & Veatch, with its partner, is going to have a profit and an administrative cost. So what they are really, in essence, offering you is a $70 million plan times 1.8, which is, and if you take 70 million and then multiply it by 1.8, you'll find that that's their profit and administrative cost for Black & Veatch and the contractor. So that's $56 million that's on top of what the product they're going to provide you. And that does not include the cost that you're going to have to pay at some point to Cayugas, because they're going to want their money out of the land that is presently being used. One. Two, you're going to have to pay additional costs for piping here, there, or about, because that's a separate contract. It's not part of the Black and Beach contract. So, and that's in the paper, you all know that. So that's on top of the 126 million. So that's your piping and your studies over and above the 126. City's not telling you that. The other problem that you have is that you have to put this water someplace. Once it's in, you're either going to put it in the ocean or you're going to put it in the aquifer, but they don't know what that cost is going to be for the aquifer. They know they can put it in the ocean. So those are all costs that are not included in the 126 billion. And they will tell you, if you ask them, there's going to be another 2018 vote in 2 to 3 years for more cost. Now my concern is this. It was passed in 2015, a 218 vote. That provides enough money to finance $60 to $75 million of new construction costs without any more additional payment by the ratepayers. I'm concerned about driving out people in Morro Bay that can't afford the $41 plus what's going to come after that in order for them to live here economically. It doesn't make sense. I was talking day before yesterday to a businessman in Embarcadero. He pays $3,000 a month water bill. With the new water bill, he's going to be paying $5,000 a month. I said to him, well, you're going to absorb that other $2,000 a month for your sewer bill, right? Because you're certainly not going to pass it on to the customer. He said, well, we may have to go to paper plates and plastic spoons and forks because we can't afford the water to clean the dishes. So that's what you're running into. You're going to tear up the Quintana in order to build those pipes, which makes no sense to disrupt all of those businesses. So I just don't understand why anybody in Morro Bay would vote to have this increase, because you're running the little people that can't afford additional $41 a month. But that's just the start. That's not the end result. So I'll be around afterwards if you want to ask me any questions. Thank you.
Steve Stevens, did you want to come talk about Black and Beach?
Hi, I originally came up to Morro Bay to broker the development at the Cloisters. I can tell you the resistance to that relative to the Coastal Commission was about a 15-year project. What it took is communication with the Coastal Commission. This particular project, what is needed is to embrace some of the considerations that some of these regulatory agencies have. I think that that to a certain extent we've closed our ears, and when I say we, I'm talking collectively in terms of the city councils through the years, unfortunately, and it has impacted everybody here. The other thing I wanted to bring up, there are a couple of different issues. What I'm very sensitive to are those that cannot afford this increase. There are seniors, obviously, on fixed incomes. You've got tenants that are going to be impacted by this. You've got owners. Investment in Morro Bay is going to be impacted. But businesses are going to be severely impacted. The primary reason is just not the additional costs that they're going to have to absorb, but think about every day people decide, well, let's go have lunch here or let's go have lunch there. That additional, whether it's $41 a month or $75 a month or whatever that figure is, it's a matter of deciding that I can't patronize those businesses any longer. And what's the ripple effect? The ripple effect is that jobs are lost. Businesses are going to be devastated. Now, there's going to be businesses that survive, but to say that there's no impact and to say it's simply a $41 increase that they're talking about here, I'm sorry, there is a ripple effect on all of this. The other couple of considerations that I just wanted to bring up. In 2015, as you're well aware, we voted for a $75 million increase. The city at that time, we're talking about the credibility of the city. This is just prior to the Prop 218 vote. They came out with a fact sheet. That fact sheet specifically states that there is funding, if I can find it here. That the proposed maximum rates provide adequate funding to build a WWTP, a wastewater treatment plant, without Cayucas. Recently, I asked the city council over about a 4 to 6 week period for a response. And it didn't take that long to finally get one. And the response was, well, that vote was, we want to make sure we're going in the right direction. Proposition 218 is not written in a manner that you say, well, we wanted to go in the right direction. It's revisionist history. Specifically, the fact sheet from the city of Morro Bay, you can see their logo up on top, states that data includes a precise projection of cost of building a WWT plant without Cayucas. So finally, I just wanted to talk about the selection of Black & Veatch. And again, I haven't gotten a response from the city on this, but I specifically have asked 4 times about the vetting process, because I think it's important relative to the city's credibility that we understand that the city has our back. And I asked, what is your vetting process when it comes to the selection of Black & Veatch? And are you aware that the city of Antioch sued Black & Veatch relative to misrepresentation just recently? I haven't got an answer from them on that. It had to do with specifically issues over the water treatment system, filtration issues, performance problems and defects, misrepresentations, omissions of information, and gross miscalculations. That Black & Veatch did not perform any pilot studies of bench tests to confirm its process of quantities of sludge. And how that is pertinent here is that we're dealing with a similar issue relative to the viability and feasibility of the area that we're talking about relative to to the reclamation, to the treatment of water. And the fact is that the city, as of this moment, is relying on models. There's a firm, GSI, who could have been doing tests during this period, during this exploratory period. The city has decided to not use them, but we're not contracted with them yet, and until, as I was told, the 218 vote passes. The cost of those studies would have been under $500,000, and we're yet talking about a $125 million project. And lastly, I just wanted to say that suit relative to the city of Antioch comes on the heels of a judge in a county in Florida. And pardon me if somebody from Florida knows better than I, Pinellas. A Pinellas County judge ruled against Black & Veatch relative to a breach of contract. And this had to do specifically with, and that award, by the way, was in the amount of $36 million. I still have not gotten a response again from the city relative to vetting them. But what concerns me here is that the consideration there had to do with a not to exceed clause. And this is one of the foundations of the city telling us, the city of Morro Bay telling us, well, we've got a guaranteed figure from them. Well, it's that same not to exceed approach. And to tell me that that the contractor is not going to be facing any cost overruns. Anyway, I'm done. Thank you.
Richard Sadowski, do you want to talk to us about resilience?
Thank you, Betty. Richard Sadowski. What I'd like to, by the way, it was a great presentation. I agree with Cal's process and their ideas. And regarding Mr. Truesdale's report on the flows, I have personal experience in calculating flows for Cayucas years ago. But what I'd like to talk about is the wastewater resiliency plan that was initiated or expanded on after Hurricane Sandy in New York. And we have to ask ourselves, why are we even moving the plan? And if you're addressing climate change and you're addressing sea level rise, manage retreat doesn't need to be a leap. And one of the things that we could do in good faith, to show good faith while we're getting accurate, while we're waiting for Cayucas to build their plant, we could show good faith in doing a water resiliency action plan, a RAP. Some of you may not like RAP, but maybe you'll like it now. Basically, what it is, if you Google wastewater resiliency program or plan in New York, and what they did is they, after Hurricane Sandy, they realized their lift stations and their wastewater treatment plants, they addressed it by waterproofing certain things and especially electrical components. And that's one of the things that I think that while we're waiting for Cayucas to leave and deciding more details on Plan B, we could show good faith to those two agencies by doing a plan that we, put in money into the current plan, and which we have. I mean, the plant is now running better than it has in years with the maintenance program that Cayucas and Morro Bay have done. Anyway, thank you, Betty.
So resilience is working on our infrastructure to, as has been mentioned earlier, that we could be doing in order to be ready for the new plant. Fred Collins isn't here, is he? Okay. let's see. Yeah, Nancy Bass, do you want to speak next? And then Erin, do you want to follow her? Nancy Bass is a very long-term resident here. Many of you may have done business with her prior years.
Hi, everybody. Bear in mind, the environmental impact report does not consider impacts to the community or the environment during the 3-year construction phase of the project. Since any impacts are considered temporary and therefore inconsequential. Construction of the 3 miles of pipelines is estimated to take 1 year. The proposed pipeline route is along Quintana from Main Street through the heart of the business area and through the roundabout. It will continue east on Quintana to just before South Bay Boulevard, where the pipes will be drilled under Highway 1 to Teresa Drive, which is in front of the rehabilitation hospital and the retirement home, and then north to the extension of South Bay Boulevard. The city says the preferred site was chosen in an area of compatible surrounding land uses and neighborhood. Yet this site is only 360 feet from approximately 200 of Morro Bay's most fragile and vulnerable residents. These elderly residents will endure an estimated 2.5 years of construction noise, rock removal, earth moving equipment, and estimated 6,574 heavy truck trips, air pollution, asphalt paving odors, and dust. My friend who lives there has severe asthma, and many people there are on oxygen. These are elderly folks to be just necessary collateral damage? During pipeline installation, the 210 employees that park on Teresa Drive will have no place to park in an area that has no other options. The construction of all proposed WRF facilities will require 22 acre-feet of water. The final EIR states the 22 acre-feet of water required to construct the project will be met by existing capacity. Hopefully, we will not be in water rationing drought conditions in 2 years when construction begins. There were 16 other possible sites that were quickly dismissed after a brief cursory examination. You may rightfully ask, why has the city so relentlessly pursued this as the preferred site, which is also the most costly, when it has so many negative aspects for the community? We don't know. However, this project also includes the addition of all 396 acres of the Tri-W land to the city's sphere of influence. That means, quoting the final EIR, the sphere of influence of the preferred site is intended to provide logical boundaries for annexation to the city, unquote. The city tried before, within the last couple of years, to include the Tri-W property in its sphere of influence, but has so far been denied by the governing agency known as LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission. Again, quoting the final EIR, the city's memorandum of understanding with Tri-W does provide that the city would assist with having the entire property added to the city's sphere of influence, unquote. Access to the Tri-W property has always been a drawback to development there. Access to the new WRF site will also give access to the Tri-W property. Thank you.
This is Aaron Oaks, and he'll speak to other impacts to residents.
Thank you, Betty, and thank you to everyone for showing up to the Citizens for Affordable Living presentation. I also want to thank all the residents who have different views coming to this workshop today. My name is Aaron Oaks. I'm 33 years old. I'm a marketing professional, and I'm also a millennial, so sometimes I put down the smartphone to look up and pay attention. And I've been paying close attention to this particular issue, the Morro Bay Water Reclamation Facility. I'm a rare breed. As I mentioned, I'm 33 years old. I'm part of a demographic that is not adequately represented in this room right now. But I know a lot of you have children and grandchildren. They will be living here in Morro Bay. Yeah, and so the problem is this project is going to impact people like me, people who are renters. The fact of the matter is most millennials in San Luis Obispo County and a lot of millennials who live in Morro Bay, they don't own a home, they're renters. And a lot of us actually don't qualify for PG&E's utility discount program because we're just renting, we just pay the bills. Maybe some of us pay for water and sewer, we get that bill, but most of us don't. So when I hear from the city presentation them saying, well, the $41 surcharge is reasonable, I say, good for you. It's reasonable for the previous baby boomer generations, but not mine. We can't afford that. Our costs for living, including groceries, utilities, other forms of discretionary spending, they're going up too. The problem is that we're unable to pay that cost because the property owners are going to increase the rent. That's just the way it works. When it comes to infrastructure projects, when they raise the rates, a lot of property owners will raise the rent. And without rent control legislation, we're in a pickle. And I feel like we need to hit the pause button, a serious pause button, and take a look at the socioeconomic impacts of young people and young families in Morro Bay. I feel they are underrepresented. And I feel that we need to think about my generation and future generations to come. $191 a month is just a starting point, my friends. It's going to get higher. A lot of infrastructure projects throughout the Californian coastline, all throughout the state, they have constant Proposition 218 processes every couple of years. It's going to get higher. 191 that's just the beginning. And that's not a fear tactic. This is not fear mongering, this is factual, this is city planning. So we got to keep that in mind. And I have faith that we can come to a consensus on that. It's going to take a little work, but I think we can get there. We can do better. We can do better than this. Thank you very much.
Jim Warner is going to speak next. He was a longtime Morro Bay resident, left for a few years, and then saw the error of his ways and came back. Jim has the hand up for you.
Like everyone, I'm a retiree from the fire department.
Hold your mic up, please.
Thank you. I'm a retiree from the fire department, and currently I'm on a fixed income. While I'm looking that I may need to go back to work to pay the bills, and so I'm concerned about this. What I've handed out to you is a friend of mine who the city requested a study of the wastewater pump stations. and they looked at a document. I'm going to take one of those back and reference it. At the very top paragraph, WRF, section 3.1, cost comparison, table 5. Unfortunately, that's part of a much larger document that I don't have, but this is specific in the planning of this sewer. The city used a comparison between the South Bay Boulevard site and the Rigetti site. Now, the Rigetti site is no longer being considered, but the data, the height, the distance, it's very comparable to the Giannini site. That Giannini site is a little bit lower. This document basically talks about how much energy and therefore how much money it takes to pump sewage all the way to the South Bay Boulevard site as compared to pumping sewage to the Rigetti site or a Giannini site. Reading the second paragraph, the comparative annual cost of effluent pumping between the South Bay Boulevard site or the Rigetti site is stated to be 28% more per table 5. This difference cannot be supported with engineering logic. To deliver effluent to South Bay Boulevard and Rigetti is approximately 370% more energy required than listed in table 5. And I won't belabor you with it now, but if you look on the back side of your document, they have the math to support that conclusion. I'll leave you to read that at your own leisure. It's not actually that difficult, even though we look a little strange at first glance. So going down, table 5 annual costs for South Bay and Rigetti, the cost differential will look like the following when accounting for energy required to deliver effluent to and from the site. Cost differences between South Bay and Rigetti, $64,000 for South Bay, $50,000 for Rigetti, with a difference of $14,000 or 28% difference. The estimated energy needed to South Bay over Rigetti is 370% greater. 3 times 7 more than the 1.28 times. You do the math, 3.7 times $64,000 equals $237,000. South Bay Boulevard increases cost over 30 years. 237 times 30 is $7.1 million. The Rigetti cost over 30 years, 50,000 times 30 is $1.5 million. That's a difference of $5,600,000. The city, in their computations, is using the table 5 data. This is a report that was requested by the city, by Shoreline Engineering, delivered on the date of October 17th. I spoke with the engineer, and the reason why he gave this to me is that the city council person who accepted the report was skeptical, and by my understanding, the city has continued to use the table 5 data in their calculations, which leads me to believe competency. Where is the competency in the city? Originally, this plant was supposed to start around 30 million. Then it was 75. It went up as high as 167. Now it's down to 126. You've got numbers all over the place. You've got engineering reports which tell the city your calcs are wrong. Yet the city has continued to go with the South Bay Boulevard site. And I have to ask, in light of strong economic data, why are you doing that? Why would you do that? We have the Giannini site. It meets our requirements. It makes the State Coastal Commission happy. It makes the Regional Water Quality Control Board happy. It is not the cheapest. It may not be the most perfect site, but it's affordable. And we've already set aside a great deal of money to do that. Previous presenters, I think, have made that case to you. So read this at your leisure. It is consumable. Anytime I see division signs, it's a little uneasy. But take your time with it. Read all the different abbreviations, what they mean, and you'll see the sense of why I don't trust the city to competently manage this project forward. So I think we need to stop this project and do a reset, as is the purpose of this hearing, of our workshop here today. Thank you very much.
We have 3 more speakers if you can handle it. Cindy Hawley will be next. She is an environmental attorney by trade.
This is going to be a good follow-up to the previous speaker.
Pull the mic up, please.
Oh, sorry. This will be a follow-up to the previous speaker. One of my, and it's also related to the fact that the city council has not approved any plans or any permits for this project. There's nothing approved for it in the record. There's the wastewater reclamation, water reclamation facility master plan of 2017, and there is the 2016 master water reclamation plan. Both of these documents have detailed project descriptions in them. They're also going to have to get 3 development permits, 2 coastal development permits, 1 from their own planning department and 1 from the Coastal Commission, and for the South Bay Boulevard site, a development permit from the county. Now, as you know, development permits, anybody who's built anything, and I think even changed it, hot water heater these days, you have to have a permit. And the development permits require that you provide a project description. And it's the project description that translates into how the project is built. And if you want to change your project description in a permit, you've got to go back and get an amendment of that project description. So this is a big problem in 2 ways. First of all, the first consequence is that since there's no adopted or approved project description that defines the limit and that defines the project and the limits to how the money can be spent. We don't have that, and there is no public measure by which the spending is accountable because there is not one approved project description. There's nothing that we can look at while they're working on the project to say, check, check, they did this, oh my God. No, there's nothing in the project description that says they can do this. There's no ways that they can be accountable to us. And I don't think that rates should be included. They should be raised until we get that kind of accountability. Now there's another problem with it too that's related, and that is because there are no definite project plans that have been approved, there are also not any definite costs. Now the Proposition 218 is a constitutional amendment that the people of California passed, and it requires actual costs. You can't raise the rates on a city like Morro Bay's ratepayers unless you base those rates on actual costs. Which means when you back that up, you've got to have actual project description and you've got to apply cost to those. The city has not done that. They admit in their staff report for the June 28th meeting, they admitted that all the costs were approximate and estimates. And that's what they're basing the rate increase on. It's unconstitutional, and it invites project contingencies to be added on. When you don't know what the project is, that invites a company like Black & Veatch to just invent stuff. And they also have a contingency written in of 30% of the cost, of the actual cost of the construction of the project, which we don't know yet, is written in to the contract with Black & Veatch for 30% of a contingency. So I personally believe that this should just be put on hold, that we should definitely protest this because it's a real screw job, I think. And
Don't be polite.
yeah, don't hold back. Anyway, that's my message. And I want to say something about the South Bay side too. there was an expert panel that the city council said they would have. And it was an expert panel of, I think, 5 or 4 different experienced public works directors who had experience in major public works, including sewer plants. And their advice was, quote, "The biggest contributor to cost at the South Bay Boulevard site is the site itself. Pipeline and earthwork costs are very high. The most effective way to reduce construction costs is to go back to or near the existing wastewater treatment site." So, protest.
Kerrigan Mahan is next. Kerrigan?
Get the hook, get the hook.
People got dressed up.
Lou, hi, thank you all for coming. I'm not sure, oh, I see that 3-minute clock. We don't really have a 3-minute clock. So, there's not anything I can really add to any of this. Is specific to engineering, specific to the science. I got involved with Cal right in the beginning. And I know how much I still don't know, and I know how many moving parts there are to this, and I know how confusing it can be. It has nothing to do with the business that I was and still am in. But it does run, interestingly enough, somewhat parallel at times to my business, as a lot of businesses do. This is being mismanaged from stem to stern, and it has been mismanaged from the beginning. It's gone on much longer than this current regime. And if anybody was to look into the history of how long this has been going on, it would be horrifying. We are a small town of 10,000 people, a little fishing village on the central coast of California. Let us pray. Guys, we're in very serious doo-doo here, no pun intended. There aren't enough of you here. I'm going to do something that I was sworn to be nice to the powers that be. I see none of them are here.
Chickens.
Yeah. And I will remain polite. What they have done to us, what they are doing to us, the very fact that we are in a 45-day period now, I had no doubt that it wasn't going to happen. It's happening, we're in it. Now, that being said, this is a runaway freight train and it's going to destroy the city of Morro Bay. It will destroy the city of Morro Bay. If they win this Proposition 218, you've heard enough today. You've heard from very smart people. There are really smart people in Cal, and there are really smart people in Morro Bay. And the city, for whatever reason, isn't listening. Why? I've asked it for a year. What is the motive? Nobody can answer it. What is it? Nobody answers the motive. Is it gentrification? Ooh, that's rough. That's ugly. So? Plenty's ugly. Now, the most important thing, and I'm going to segue, we got to win this thing. And winning it is going to involve a lot of protest votes. My concern is you've got a small faction that are protests, whatever that may be, whether it's 10 or 20 or maybe even 30%, I don't know. And you've got the other side of the sad coin that somehow believe that this is okay. So pathetic. I mean, so pathetic. How much more do you need to hear? I'm reluctant to ask, but I'm going to. No, I'm not. How many are on the fence, if I may ask one question? How many came here today that are actually were confused and wanted to try to understand this better? Or is everybody in here already protesting? Except I know one person I'm talking to that isn't on the fence and believes what the city is telling us. It's not true. There are too many facts that aren't making sense. It's a smell test. That's what I trust. Something's very, very wrong here. I wouldn't go so far as to say there are Swiss bank accounts, but I don't know, you know. The Nunnally brothers, I call them the Nunnally brothers, the Rickenbach Nunnally team, we're into them over 5 million so far, I think. So I'm getting the signage here. You know, during the awards, when they start playing the music, it's like, I'm not done. Okay, here I wrap. I'm wrapping. We have got to protest this thing. That's what this finally is about, stopping this 218. And there aren't enough of us here to pull that off. We've got to really go out there and get it done. There it is. How long did it take you to set that up? Thank you.
Marla Jo, would you like to say something before I close?
Hi, I'm Marla Jo Sadowski, and there we go. I'd just like to, just as a normal person that lives in town here, and I've lived here 36 years in Morro Bay. I never thought that I even wanted to live in Morro Bay, but then once I got here, I fell in love with it, and I raised my kids, and my grandkids are here. I would like to thank Aaron, the young man that came up here, the 33-year-old, because I have, my daughters are in their 30s, and it's something that we haven't heard about. Look at all of us, you know? The rents keep going up after the last 218. The rents generally went up about $200 for the people across the city. It was a pretty standard addition to their rent cost, and that was because of the changes that the landlords are expecting with the water and sewer. So those rents are going to go up again, and it's just it's not right. I don't believe in the South Bay Boulevard Wharf project for a variety of reasons. The cost is ridiculous. The city never set a budget and said, what can a community of 10,000 with $50,000 a year average income afford? I'd also like to make a point of talking about the city's the sales job that they've done to us, that they're now to the point where they're saying the Coastal Commission has prohibited any wastewater treatment plant west of Highway 1. Well, that's just simply untrue. That's not true. The last time the city was before the Coastal Commission, they denied a project west of the highway that had problems with the project. All right? We're talking about sea level rise and the tsunami, but one of the reasons to move the plant, and I am a supporter of moving the plant a little bit. The Hansen site next, more easterly from the current wastewater treatment plant, the FEMA maps show it above the 100-year floodplain. I mean, really, we didn't look there? it's, something else is going on here besides caring about our sewage and our water and our wastewater and doing the best job that we can do with what we have. And anyway, I'm so concerned for my community. And I'm gonna be 65 in December. I'm gonna be losing income, right? Anybody feel that way? You're gonna lose some income here coming up?
Yeah, in about 3 months.
Yeah.
65.
Yeah, thank you. I'm December, okay? So I'm gonna have a big chunk of money missing. And I already am concerned with the cost of living. You know, now I'm gonna lose money, and I do not appreciate being gouged for a project that is environmentally not doing the job that it needs to do if you're addressing climate change and weather patterns. Then you have, there's so many different variables in there that aren't being considered, and I don't think that we have any team in place in Morro Bay who actually knows what the issues are. So that's it. Thanks.
One short wrap. This is the thing that most people don't really realize. Every parcel you own, if you own 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, we had the car show and I was sitting at a table and someone came up and said, I own 4 parcels in town. I said, guess what? You get 4 protest votes. And you don't have to be a registered voter. You don't have to be a citizen. And if you're a ratepayer, so please, this is a piece of information that's not getting out there. And people ask you, say, look, for every parcel you own, you get another protest. You will get a protest from the city, and you're also, Cal is mailing out, probably next week, a copy of the ballot. You get a copy of the official ballot. We copied right off the city's website, so it's directly. We had a bunch of protests before. We thought we could turn them in because we followed what the Howard Jarvis Association said was a proper protest. Well, the city had a different idea. So, accepting their different idea, our protest vote that we have is a copy of theirs. So if you get theirs or you get ours, be sure you send one in. Please fill it out directly and tell your neighbors in the valley that come over for the weekend rentals. You'll see them in the next month. Say, hey, did you guys get the notice? If you didn't, the protest ballots are available, so please, individually, this is important. Thank you.
Barry, ballots are here. We have some ballots.
We have ballots here, and you need 1 ballot for each property. You can't put all 4 on one. So you'll need to make copies, because I don't think they'll be sending you multiple copies. Thank you for that, yes. And then we also know that you need to drop them off at City Hall, or you need to mail them into City Hall, and that technically you have to take your own, unless you know someone that also who's turning theirs in, and then you can put them all together in one envelope. So I don't know if Jeff wants to follow up on that. We haven't really addressed the Coastal Commission directly. Marla Jo touched on it, thought she did steal my thunder, but I just want to read to you the resolution that the Coastal Commission passed in 2013 denying the other project. And this, I'm reading it directly from their staff report, and this is what it said. The Commission hereby denies a coastal development permit for the proposed development. And that was for a very specific project. On the grounds that the development will not conform with the policies of the local coastal program, and check this out, access and recreational policies, because it was so near the beach. Okay. Approval of the permit would not comply with California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, because there are feasible mitigation measures or alternatives that would substantially lessen the significant adverse impacts of the development on the environment. And I think Hanson and the Giannini project have addressed that we have other ways we can do this that will mitigate those items. And And if Mr. Fred Collins was here from the Shumash Council, he spoke at City Council last Tuesday and said how his people's cemetery is going to be gone right through with the pipes, and that the city has not mitigated this. And this is something you can't mitigate. It would be like if we drove through the Los Osos Cemetery, or if we drove through the Cayuga Cemetery, rather than going around it. The city has not shown that it's willing to go around their cemetery. And this is a very serious thing that can actually stop a project and delay it. So just want you to know that we have alternatives. That's exactly what it said. It never said that we can't build west of Highway 1. It never said that there can't be a different site or that there can't be a different project. It was that specific project at that specific time at that specific location. Jeff?
Okay, great, and thank all of the Cal speakers.
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing for Whisper in his ear. Relative to the 218 process, it's weighted so that it isn't a straight vote, yes or no. Any vote that is, okay, and Jeff will talk about that. Any vote that happens, any vote that is in terms of a no is counted. If you do nothing, your vote is an affirmative in favor of the project. Inaction is not an answer. So the ballot has to be delivered. There has to be an assertive action in terms of sending that in. Here you go.
Are there any questions about voting? I'm sorry, yes.
So everybody knows that we can do this over here and you guys will take it in, correct?
Yeah.
No, yes and no. The ballots that we have here are copies of what the city issued this week. Take as many as you need, hand them to your friends, submit them to the city on your own in an envelope, ideally. Mail it or walk it in there. Either way. They're accepting ballots now. Yes, sir.
So the earlier voting, protest voting we did through Cal.
Absolutely right. That was my next point. About those of you who signed ballots over the last 3 months that we've been putting out, those will not be counted. So you have to vote again. But I think what a great opportunity to be able to vote twice. I mean, how often is that happen? Vote 3 times if you like. That's right. That's right. In the back? Yeah.
No water meter. You still get 2 or 3 votes.
I believe so. And I think it's best that you fill out the ballots and send them in just to be safe. Might be missed out on that opportunity. Any other questions about voting and ballots? Okay, so we have a whole bunch here. Probably enough. Go ahead.
You say bring it into City Hall. Where do you mean? Where do you hand?
Good question. It goes to the city clerk at 595 Harbor Street. And they're going to have a place there, probably a slot where you can drop it. So they're taking them now and they know what's going on. So it's the building, as you face the 2 buildings, it's the building on the left at the corner of Harbor and but I just saw about on the ballot, thank you.
And you might want to ask them to make a copy of it for you, so you've got.
Always a good idea, now that we don't trust the city, but keep a copy for your own files.
Make a copy of what they can.
Okay, does that answer your question? Okay.
I was told to make a copy and send it to you guys.
We would like copies too, because we're trying to monitor, frankly, what areas have voted, what areas have not voted, where do we need to apply our efforts in reaching out to people. So we do like to get a copy, but that means making another copy. A lot of people don't want to do it, but it would be great if you could mail a copy to us as well. And all our contact information is over here at the table. So I want to say a couple of things about what we have at the table besides the ballots. We have an enormous amount of information, if you want to read more than you heard today, but there's a tremendous amount of information if you want to read and look into this stuff. Dr. Truesdale's article, The Myth of Water Independence, is over there. We have Howard Jarvis' response to the city's ballot that they tried to apply about a month ago, which was very obstructive, to say the least, and we've been talking with Howard Jarvis for a long time. We sent him a copy of the ballot. They sent a 3-page letter to the city basically challenging the ballot extremely, and the city backed off and created a ballot which, oddly enough, is very much like the one we were sending out. No. So the Howard Jarvis document is there if you want to read it. A question came up about people who auto-pay their water and sewer bill, that you might not get the ballot in the mail. I don't know if that's true or not. If you don't have a ballot within a week, I would call the city. I'm sure they'll be happy to get you one. We are a grassroots organization. We do not have a wealthy developer or anyone else behind us on this. We have yard signs. Those of you who've seen the yard signs, if you want to make a donation account for $10, we will get you a yard sign.
No, we'll get you one for free.
No, we won't.
Yeah, I'll get
I talked with the treasurer. It's not going to happen.
it. Ask me, I'll get you one.
No, you won't. We have some great looking t-shirts there on the wall. Those are both short sleeve, but yes, and Linda has one on. Short sleeve shirts are $15, the long sleeves are $20.
Our mailing cost was $3,000.
We have our business cards over there and a bunch of other good stuff. We need help to win this thing. We worked really hard the last 3 or 4 months, and we didn't get as many ballots as we thought we would, to be honest with you. So we need help. Just you're going to get your hair done or something, take a stack of ballots, talk to the hairdresser, look at these a lot of water, ask if you can leave a stack of ballots there. Even that kind of help will help us, okay? Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors. We're going to be walking up and down the streets. You're going to see a lot of us. This is the hardest working group of people I've ever been associated with. There's 50 or 60 that are just on this all day long for the past year and a half and longer. And you just heard from a few of them today. So I hope you heard enough to decide which way you're going to vote. If you have questions beyond that, informal questions here by anybody. Yes?
I heard a rumor.
I didn't ask her to say this, by the way. This is my wife, Carrie. So she's
I heard through the grapevine, word, that there are several of the signs that you have, vote no, that people are putting on their front lawns have disappeared.
some signs have disappeared, and we've hired the PIs necessary to take care of that.
So isn't there rules on where you're supposed to put the signs?
Yeah, I didn't plan this question.
Yeah, right.
She obviously listens to me more than I realized. So there are rules to the sign placements. According to NBPD, they won't allow signs at four-way stop signs for safety reasons, which makes sense, and they won't allow them at roundabouts, which we have one. So that's our limitation. We also do not want them on city or state property. We want them on private property. So those are pretty much the rules. And if you live on a big main street, that's the best place to put them.
And you take them as a federal offense.
That's fine. Yeah. So we really do need help in many, many ways. So I'm going to end this right now. Thank you all, Cal members. Thank you everybody who came. More questions?
Well, I would like to make a comment.
Yes.
I did attend last Tuesday's city council meeting, and I suggested to them to defray a lot of the costs of building the sewer. Why don't they sell some of the property they have? Like, they have that property down, it's the restaurant near the Embarcadero. It hasn't been used for years. If they would sell that, that would raise a lot of money. And then they also have that land on the corner of Highway 1 and Sancho Sancho. Sell that. I don't know if they have other properties, but they should sell it to help raise money to help pay for this sewer. I mean, what are they hanging on to all this stuff for? And then they probably even could sell some of the Embarcadero property to some of the people that rent there. I mean, don't make us pay for everything. They should help, because they're just stockpiling all this wealth and not doing anything with it and making us pay for the cities, you know, other rates. So I don't know if they would do it or not. They, I don't know how much they liked my suggestion. They didn't give me the 3 minutes to talk. They cut me off.
Yeah, what a surprise.
Yeah, well, yeah, right.
That's a 3-minute thing, yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say is those are all good options. In order to build a project that's millions of dollars like this, they can sell all their land and still not have enough. So they really have to have a revenue stream to support the project, which is up to 218. Even though we approved it in 2015, they want more money, even though they have not used that money, except $5 million to consultants. They've not built a new pipeline, they've not done anything.
Yeah.
Construction standpoint. So it's a good idea, but it's this will probably make or break this whole deal. Is the vote that's coming on August 20th. It's a good idea, though. You have a question about how to vote?
That's the point is what she was saying, that has to go in the general fund, not to the specific rate.
Oh, that's true. It's a different fund, they can't,
This is a separate fund,
good point, Tom.
and their city's $1.5 million down each year, this year and past, that are short $1.5 million in the general fund. So if that project is sold, it has to go to the general fund.
Yeah, that's another reason. I thought you weren't gonna say that, okay. Questions for?
I don't have a voting question. Are we open for other questions now?
Yeah, I was gonna just break that up, because we've held you here a long time, I don't really want people to have to stay if they don't want to, but there'll be 10 or 12 of us up here, be happy to answer your questions. Okay, thank you so much for coming, thank you.